We're back with more Xiangling only. Just like last time, the rules are as follows. I can only use Xiangling in battle. Any puzzles that require another element can be completed with another character. No co-op.
はい、じゃあ許可が必要にしました。早っ。おーし、待って、ラグっててわからんぞ。
And all polearms are allowed. With the rules out of the way again, let's see if you can beat Liyue using only Xiangling. First off,
home field advantage.
Secondly, we start our journey by taking our first steps into Liyue. Venti told us that the rite of ascension should be happening around this time. We go to the site of the rite of ascension and make some wishes. But not in the usual sense of wishing in Genshin Impact. No, we wish at the shrine things. At the second shrine, we get interrupted by Murillo HRC and their Yanfei, which caused me to have to sit through the cutscene again. So from here on out, I am never inviting anybody into my world during a cutscene. The rite of ascension finally starts and it's magically daytime. Rex Lapis dies and we sneak out of there with some stealth. We get cornered by the Millith, but Ginger Man comes out of nowhere and saves us. To repay him for that, we have to go visit the adepti. We meet the Moon Man, who tells us to leave. A 30-minute trip just for that. We show them our sigil of permission, which was given to us by Childe, and now he lets us talk. We tell him that Rex Lapis died. The Moon Man perfectly describes my experience with Sumeru.
Utterly disappointing.
And we fight the Millith. They were easy because we got buffs from the Moon Man. Next we go to Wangshuin to meet an edgelord.
To the blind, everything may not be as it appears.
Wait, what?
Who tells us that his tummy is rumbling, so we have to make him some food. So we talk to the chef, even though we're playing as a chef, and he says that he's too scared of ghosts in the kitchen. This is exactly why Xiangling is a better chef. She isn't afraid of ghosts. She's a motherfucking ghostbuster though. So she goes to bust that ghost. That sounded dirty. The ghost child who is in the kitchen leads us to a ruin hunter, which we have to fight. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. It never really hit me, but if it were to fly up in the air, this would have been a much different battle. With the ghost out of his kitchen, he gets to cooking. Zhao's tum-tum is filled now, so we can tell him that his dad died. We leave him in a pile of tears. Next, we go off to meet the Mountain Man, but first we have to save this guy's brother from Amber. I don't know what she has against him, but I guess we have to save him. After doing that, the Mountain Man appears and he's like, "Why are you here?" We tell him that Rex Lapis died and he's like, "At the rite of ascension?" We leave him and go off to meet Cloud Retainer. First we have to make some food for her, but that's not that bad because we are playing as a chef. After doing that for her, she opens the door to her domain and we go in. Now normally for this domain, you would trigger the Pyro Monument so you can proceed in the domain. But you can also do this. After doing that, we tell Cloud Retainer that Rex Lapis died, and she's like, "I'm gonna kill everybody." But she never really does anything with that. I wouldn't mind her killing everybody, that means I wouldn't have to AR grind anymore, so more from me. We go back to Liyue and Childe's like, "Get richer, then I'll show you Xiangling." And AR locks us. Well, I guess I'll go AR grind now. During the AR grind, we fought Wolf Dad, Pyro Regisvine, and Primo Geoviship. Two of those I real quickly want to go over. First off, the Pyro Regisvine is a bitch. I had to fight it so many times during this playthrough. We can't stun it so it can deal more damage because we only deal pyro damage, so we just have to do the weak damage the entire fight. He also has this move where he shoots out a bunch of pyro balls that chase you, and it's just disgusting. Second off, I want to cover the Wolf of the North. I decided after completing Razor's Quest that I would fight it normally, and yeah, it's pretty tough. My first attempt I actually lost the first phase because his attacks are just so hectic and strong. The second attempt I was able to do it, but with some healing items. Act 2 starts with us meeting up with Xiangling. This Archon quest is pretty much just a fetch quest with very few other things in it. First thing we need to get is some high-grade Noctilucous Jade for Xiangling. And to do that, we go to Mondstadt. We blow up some rocks and find out that that one is high grade. Next thing we need is some silk ass flowers to make some perfume. Once the perfume is made, we give it to the statue of the 7. It seemed to like the one that old ladies like, so I think... Next we need to get a bell from a gilf. After that we need to buy a kite from another gilf. So is Xiangling an old woman or a small child? Next we have to do some charity for people to do what we want them to do. In all honesty, I don't even remember why we did this. I was half paying attention. Next we go to Boo Boo Pharmacy to meet a dead person. The child wants us to find a cocoa goat. We go to the Guizhong Ballista and find out it's broken. We repair it and get ambushed by some treasure hoarders, which finally gives us some form of combat in this quest. They all went down super easily. Enemies like this aren't going to be a problem for a while. We weren't able to find it, the cocoa goat, and returned empty-handed. We get laughed at by a ginger and he pays for the stuff Xiangling wanted because he's such a nice guy. I'm sure he didn't hire one of his Fatui members to eavesdrop on us while we were talking about super important stuff. Oh look, he hired one of his Fatui members to eavesdrop on us while we were talking about super important stuff. Well, as a reward for sitting through this boring ass quest, we were rewarded with dinner. Finally, some alone time with the Gilf. But then the goat comes and tells us to meet with Ningguang. But then before we were even able to think about going up to the Jade Chamber, probably Luigi put another AR lock on us. But at least we got a wish from doing all this. I wonder what we'll get. I'm just gonna skip over what happened during this AR grind and go on to the next quest because you know it all already. Although, might I add that this AR grind was probably the worst in the entire playthrough. Act 3 starts with us getting our first look at the Jade Chamber, but there's a problem. The mechanism required to get to the island floating in the sky is triggered by Animo. You might just point to the rule that says any puzzle that requires another element can be completed with another character, but I think this will not require me using an Animo character. Let me explain the physics of water in Genshin Impact. When you are under something underwater, you will be pushed up to the surface. You can use this to build up incredible amounts of momentum when you can't be forced up. When you pop up from out of the water, you'll be shot up in the sky based off of the amount of momentum you built up. Why am I telling you about this? Because there's a dock in Liyue Harbor where you can stay under it and build up an incredible amount of momentum, so you can just fly to the island in the sky. So I stayed under there for over an hour. You wanna know what the result of this was? We make it to the island, but that was not the right way to get there. So instead, we go to the Guizhong Ballista to shoot me up there. It wasn't my idea, it was Paimon's. Xiangling just went along with it because she's a badass and a risk taker. We got there but are greeted by the Lilies, so we take them out. After doing that, Keqing appears and tells us that we're an idiot, and we should just go to Liyue Harbor. We ascend to the Jade Chamber and learn about Ningguang's suspicions with the Fatui. We go to their camp and realize that they were forging sigils of permission. Well, this seems like a pretty important thing to confront the Fatui about, but instead, we have a date with Xiangling to get to. Don't want to miss that. He tells us about wild Glaze lilies and we have to sing to them. We sing some amazing poetry to them.
Fortnite! What the point of building what you going night?
For singing that song, we get rewarded with 3 cryo whopper flowers. This was not nice to deal with. The cryo whopper flowers shoot out projectiles, and coupled with the fact that there are 3 of them, they're basically undodgeable. The only way to get through this fight unscathed is to stun 1 or 2 of them. But who cares, we were able to get through them, so it was not that bad. The goat shows up again and gives us some Glaze lilies because she's so nice and dick. We tell her she didn't give us directions to the Jade Chamber, so we had to find our way up there ourselves. She apologized and said she was
a little bit off today.
We go back to Liyue and find out it's in a state of chaos. We say that there is only one man who could be behind this. The Ginger. So when Xiangling disappears, we go off to the Golden House. Before confronting Childe, we step on some Lilies soldiers. Childe finds us and demands a duel. The Childe boss fight is a boss I consider a medium difficulty boss. I think people often forget how hard this boss could be if you don't have a shielder or a healer. Childe, especially in his second and third phases, does a lot of damage, especially in his second phase. He's very sporadic with his attacks and movements. His first phase is easy because he attacks pretty slow and gives you quite a bit of warning before he attacks. Weirdly enough, the second phase went a lot smoother than the first phase, which is not what usually happens when I fight Childe, but whatever. For his third phase, he gave me a really easy pattern, so that was pretty easy. Your first fight with Childe should always be pretty easy, but it's when you challenge him later, if you don't have a healer or a shielder, where he actually becomes a problem. Ginger Man gives up, and in a tantrum he summons a god. Classic tantrum stuff. I think I would do that too, so I don't blame him. The only bad thing about that is because he summoned it, we now have to take it down. With the help of the adepti and the Xiangling, this should be pretty easy. Also, this cutscene specifically makes me think Ningguang should have 100% been a 5-star, but I digress. Ningguang summoned the Guizhong Ballistas for the Moon Man, the Mountain Man, and the Cloud to operate, but the Fatui start attacking them, so the most important person in Liyue, Xiangling, had to stop them. The fight against the Fatui was pretty easy because of the buffs that the Edgelord, the Goat, and the Gilf gave Xiangling. After the fight, we experienced some family drama between the Xiangling and the adepti. We don't care, so we go to watch my least favorite cutscene in the entire game. After that, we go to the Rite of Parting, and Keqing asks us what we want as a compensation for saving Liyue. We meet with Xiangling, who's looking off into the distance, and he tells us that the next nation we should go to visit is Inazuma. Also, why did my voice to text get Inazuma right but not Liyue or Mondstadt? And with that, Liyue is finished. We also have another AR grind we have to do, but this one won't be as bad. Once you complete Liyue's Archon quest, you unlock 3 different quests that can be cleared to get AR really easily. And I also don't consider this challenge done until every single Archon quest is completed. The quests that I'm talking about are Bogkeeper Dainsleaf, We Will Be Reunited, and Jade Chamber Rising. 2 of these quests are indeed Archon quests, but since they aren't really tied to any region's line of Archon quests, I won't really cover the plot and I'll only cover the challenges in them. Bogkeeper Dainsleaf didn't really have anything interesting to cover, except for the fact that I had to fight 2 Pyro Abyss Mages back to back. Aside from that, nothing else was noteworthy. We Will Be Reunited was notable for having one of the most annoying room of enemies I had to deal with during the entire challenge. The room in question had 1 Abyss Herald and 1 Pyro Abyss Mage. Abyss Heralds are already kind of typical to dodge, not that strong, but hectic. But in tandem with the Pyro Abyss Mage's bullshit, I hated this. Also, Abyss Heralds and Pyro Abyss Mages could trigger Vaporize on me, so fuck that. I was able to complete it, but I did die once or twice. This is probably the 3rd worst room of enemies in the entire game, and I'll get to the other 2 later. Those other 2 rooms were infinitely worse, somehow. Next was Jade Chamber Rising, and this one was pretty brutal. There's a domain early on where you have to fight a bunch of pyro enemies and strong, bulky enemies. But I think the worst enemy of all of these enemies was the Stonehide Lawachurl. Its attacks were strong and had humongous hitboxes, so I couldn't easily deal damage to it while also dodging its attacks. I took it out in not a lot of time, but I also took a lot of damage from it, which wasn't good because the next room featured... Let me introduce you the worst enemy during this entire playthrough. The Geo Bishop is a fucking shitbag that I hope to see die in a fire that was spit out by Gorba. First thing, this enemy had moves that did massive damage and had bulky, gigantic hitboxes that were the size of Times Square. Secondly, it had moves that tracked as flawlessly as the fucking Brick House Security Spark Babby. Third, you literally can't dodge these moves. You're just bound to get hit by that bullshit, and the only way to avoid being damaged by those attacks is setting up a shield or getting a crystallized shield, something like I could barely do. The fourth thing is that it's basically every single fucking move it has knocks you back as far as a blast radius for an atomic bomb. And the fifth thing, which might be the worst of everything, this enemy could transform into any element, and most of the time in Archon quests, it transforms into Pyro. It's like they know that I'm doing this challenge, and they just want to make me give up. This challenge made me fucking hate the Geo Bishop, and its ugly fucking face, and I wish I never see its hideous face again! Oh, but don't worry, it gets even worse later on in the playthrough. But other than this domain, there was nothing really exceptional about this Archon quest. Not even the Baish fight is worth going over. The only other thing that's worth covering other than the Geo Bishop is that Shenjin is canon. I don't care what anybody else says. But with the completion of those 2, I'm finally at Air 30, and I can do the Inazuma quests. I pre-farmed the Pyro seeds in advance so I don't have to fight it when he was stronger, so I don't have to grind Pyro Regis and I can automatically level up myself to level 60. Inazuma will be covered in the next video, though. We already covered a lot during this video, and it takes a lot to edit these, and I need some form of content. At the time of writing this, I'm completely done with the challenge, so I don't know when to expect Inazuma, but it won't take as long as Mondstadt took to upload. But I'll leave you with that.